Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. I'm Katie and we are continuing on with MERMAY. As I'm sure you've noticed, I'm doing these in batches rather than daily uploads. And in today's video we have 5 and it's quite a long video, so make sure you've got a nice cup of tea or whatever favourite drink you like and sit down and relax whilst we go through the next 5 prompts. And of course, if you're new to this channel, please make sure you hit that subscribe button if this is your kind of thing. Give me a like and drop me a comment down below. Anyway, let's crack on with it, shall we? For prompt number 5, it is lunch break, which I thought was a bit of a weird one. I mean, what exactly could a mermaid be having a lunch break for? I don't know. But anyway, Finley and Claudia seem to have found themselves a little restaurant underwater. And our lovely Finley is just having a little look through the menu before making a decision. I thought I would have Claudia sort of floating behind her, kind of a little bit impatiently and slightly interested in the menu, whether she's already ordered or she's waiting to have a look, who knows, but I thought that was quite a nice little quirk in this picture. I thought I would add more green tones to the background, and there are a couple of reasons which I'll go into why my colour palette choices are a little bit interesting throughout. But for this particular one, I thought it set quite a nice scene, and it also made sure our lovely Finley here stood out. After colour blocking all of the large areas in, it was time to start adding some of those details, and obviously I was starting off with that hair, which I love painting. I then move on to colour blocking in her skin tone and filling in that area. So why have I kind of started introducing greens into the background? Well, there is a very good reason for this. The Himi paints, which I've had for just under 2 years now, and I did all of the dragons with, as well as a few other pictures here and there. They are going through the walls a little bit, and some of them are kind of running low. Now, I'm not going to panic about it. I think I have enough for MERMAY, and if I haven't, I do have some backup gouache, which we'll have to dive into. However, I really want to get these used up. Like I say, I'm moving house soon, and I just want to make sure that everything that's used up is gone, and what I need, I'll still obviously keep. But whilst these are on the way out, I'm going to use them. I'm kind of waffling a bit here. Another reason why is these have dried up. I've rehydrated them and they've dried up and rehydrated numerous times, and I do think even though they are nice to paint with, it is beginning to ever so slightly affect the quality of the paint, and there'll be a painting coming up which will show a great example of it. My favourite dark blue is nearly out, and I know I was running low on that anyway because I use that a lot on the Himi dragons. And I'm kind of rationing that because that works really well for adding the shadows on Finley's body. The only other blues I have are the cobalt one, which again is for Finley's body, and I also have an ultramarine, and I don't really want each background to be exactly the same, so introducing these other colours in here seems just like a natural option, and you do get green tones within the sea. For the background, I introduced a silhouette of fishies, so I am still using that dark blue, but sparingly. And then I go round and add a few more colours to the coral in the background, as well as these, well, I don't really know what they are, but they look like they'd be good underwater, so we'll just say there's some sort of seaweed, shall we? After adding outlines to everything, again using that blue sparingly, it's time to start adding highlights. Now luckily I do actually have plenty of this white Himi paint. I did buy a refill for it about this time last year because it was running low then, and I just keep it topped up. It's pretty much exactly the same, but it comes in a little pouch. And after those highlights are done, it's time to start adding those darker tones in, just to give Finley a little bit more shape and make sense of how she's sitting as well. For the highlights and the shadows, I just speckle that on to give the impression of scales, and I'm sure you've seen this before in the Himi dragons. It's now time to start adding the finishing touches, so those ridges on Finley's scales, a bit of tone on Claudia, as well as colouring it in that menu. I did try and write menu on there, but these are quite small paintings and it was quite difficult, even with my smallest brush, so you'll just have to forgive me a little bit on that one. I thought the vase on the table was just asking to be a really nice, almost coral pink colour, and of course inside that vase we're going to have some sort of sea shrubbery, again completely fictional and made up, but you know, it's all kind of fictional and made up really. After painting in Finley's eyes and other features, I thought I'm going to just have to add a bit of a darker tone to her hair. I'd noticed I'd been doing this throughout the previous ones, so I wanted to have a little bit of consistency there, and also I do like doing that hair detail. And apart from adding a little bit of texture to the seabed, we are pretty much done for this, and it is on to the next one. Now don't worry, I will be showing these at the end of the video, so make sure you stay all the way through so you can see the full finished results. Anyway, we are on the next prompt, which is Sunday. I mean, I'm not a massive fan at all of this year's list, and I will go into a prompt that I really actually don't really think should be on here, but that aside, we are on the Sunday prompt. Now, how do you illustrate the name of a day? I don't know. But, you know, I tried my best here and I thought, well, what would I do on a Sunday? And, well, I'd relax. I'd probably have a nice book and a cup of tea, because I'm a bit boring like that sometimes. But you know what? Sunday is about relaxing. So having Finley just chilling out in an underwater hammock, I'm not really sure how that would work. But still, I thought it would be nice and quirky, and she's just there chilling out. I went for an even darker background this time by mixing the ultramarine with a bit of one of the green colours in there and a hint of black, because I just wanted the foreground to stand out more, and I think it just showcased the lighter, bolder colours a little bit better as well. I actually really like the red hammock that I did here. I love how it pops from out of the background, I guess, and it just adds a nice balance in there. It kind of gets the eye to focus on the middle of the page. Of course, I did the colour blocking and then adding the details on after, and I did go in there a little early with the highlights, but that's okay. I'm not really going to go around that area for much else, so it was okay to do that. I actually really like how Finley's hair is floating upwards. I think that's just quite a nice touch. Again, you normally let your hair down on a Sunday, but considering she's underwater, then she's letting her hair up. I also thought it would be a nice touch to have Claudia just sitting on her shoulder and I guess reading that book along with her. And I really like the nice relaxed feel that this has to it. Even though I don't think the prompt is a particularly good one, I actually like what I did with this. I thought this picture just needed a little bit of balance, so we do have a bit of sea shrubbery in the bottom left hand corner, but I also wanted to paint some seaweed in the other. And using, I guess, I want to call it the closest to sap green in there, I thought that would work the best. It had a bit more of an opacity to it and it just subtly stood out. I didn't want to have too many wacky colours in the foreground because that would take away the attention from Finley and Claudia, so I kind of like those dark bits of seaweed there. Okay, now we're on to the prompt that I didn't really think should be in here. And that's provocative. And, you know, it has so many meanings. And for this particular illustration, I thought I would have Finley pulling a face at a shark and annoying it and provoking it in that way. But of course, provocative has another meaning to it. And, you know, I'm not going to be like all uptight about things because, you know, I go to life drawing, I'm an adult, but I actually think a lot of kids do these MERMAY lists, and especially young kids, if they haven't got the biggest of vocabularies, you know, the first place they're going to go is on Google or ask the parents or whatever. And, you know, if you type Google and provocative, you're not going to get someone pulling faces at sharks, are you? So I kind of don't agree that this should be on here just because there's such a broad audience on here, and I think it might just lead a few people in a direction that maybe they shouldn't be exposed to just yet. Of course though, that is just my opinion on this, and obviously we've all got different thoughts, but I just didn't think that needed to be on here. Maybe it's perhaps a little bit raunchy. However, I think I handled the prompt well without it diving into that territory, and yeah, it's not one of my best ones. Again, my feelings about it have probably intervened a little here, but this was the point where the paint was really starting to fail a little bit. I thought I'd mix a lighter blue and I added a touch of white in there, but I think because I have let them dry out and rehydrated them so many times, it is just beginning to affect how well they mix up. And I can't grumble really, because these have been really good paints. But I guess that's the life cycle of some things, and I suppose gouache that is in a tube, I know you can pour it into pans like you would with watercolours, but again, at some point you have to wonder if it's going to affect the quality of it. And yes, I know you can also get tablets of gouache, but obviously there's a different formulation there, so that's taken into account. So this is sort of why I kind of mentioned it earlier in the video about the paint starting to fail, and I just think it's one of them things. However, I do think it's a good send-off for these paints doing all of MERMAY in them, which is why it's taking so long. So a massive thank you to all of you for being so patient with me while I'm erratically uploading. Even though, again, disliking the prompt and paints failing aside, I don't think I did a terrible job of interpreting it. I kind of like how Finley's pulling her face, and I actually really like how Claudia's just sort of motionless in disbelief there. It's like she's out with her naughty friend and she's perhaps gone a little bit too far and something's gonna go down. Anyway, we are on to the next prompt, which is Mermaid Eyes a Friend. And for some reason, my brain couldn't get around that, because the list, it's all done in hashtags and it's all one word, and you know I'm a bit literal about how I speak, and yeah, that took me quite a while to break it down and understand what it was on about. But that aside, I didn't want to Mermaid Eyes a friend. For a couple of reasons really. I'm not sure if they'd want themselves featured in a video, and I kind of want to keep it more focused on Finley and Claudia, so I humanised a mermaid and mermaidised a crab. And I kind of like how this one turned out as well. Again, the paints are misbehaving a little bit here. I used that blue and it was misbehaving. And the blue that I did for Finley's dress is the same as what I paint her body with, and that is beginning to, I mean, I do have enough of that, but it's beginning to misbehave too. However, after a couple of coats, we were okay on this one, and by adding a little bit of white to it, I added some subtle highlights and then used my favourite dark blue to add in those shadows. Now, I still wanted to keep her a little bit mermaidy, so I thought, well, she can have a nice sparkly dress which is quite similar to her scales, and I actually quite like this. I think I'd probably wear a dress like that myself if I ever wore dresses. I thought I would keep things pretty simple here background wise. I didn't want too much of a distraction going on here, and I kind of like the balance as well. For Finley, oh bless her, she looks more like a lobster as a mermaid than a mermaid, but I kind of like, again, another look of disbelief on her face of what's happened here. And I like the fact it mirrors the expression that's on Finley's face as well. I think she's not too pleased about being a human, and I think she kind of likes being a mermaid. I quite like what I did for this, conceptually anyway. Again, these paints are misbehaving, and I know it sounds like I'm making excuses, but I am going to have to sit through and give them a massive, good, thorough soaking and a good stirring to try and bring them back to life just to last the rest of the month. After adding in some of the outlines, I start to work a little bit more on that expression on her face, which should come through. I had to get the teeniest, tiniest brush I had just to try and get some of those details in. I can't believe I've actually given myself this big project and I've used the smallest sketchbook which I made. Oh dear. I do enjoy doing MERMAY though, and I hope you're enjoying this too. For the final prompt, it was superhero, and again, this is me personally struggling here. I didn't really know what to do. And then I thought, well, I could perhaps do it in the style of a superhero comic, but then I couldn't decide on which one because some of the old classics have had several different artists interpreting them, so, that's a bit of a rabbit hole. And then I thought, why not do Finley and Claudia a bit like the Powerpuff Girls? Now, it's been a hot minute since I've watched any of that. I think I probably watched a few of them in the 90s and I've probably not gone back there since. But I thought this would be a great idea to paint Finley and Claudia, and it's just such a wacky style and it really stands out from the rest. I also think using gouache for this just fits the bill perfectly because obviously cartoons, especially ones from the 90s, were very, very flat, very cellular, I guess, and it just worked perfectly and I had so much fun painting this one. I even managed to get Claudia to look a little bit like a Powerpuff Girl as well. And I just love the wacky expressions and the simplified forms of everything. And it was an absolute joy to paint, this one was. I kept the colour scheme a little bit more pastel just to sort of keep that Powerpuff Girls colour scheme going on. And I followed everything up with something I'm probably not going to do again in this book, and I gave everything a good thick black outline to make it look like it was a cartoon. And I must admit, really, apart from occasionally darkening some of the paints, the black one's the only one I've hardly used any of. I must admit though, I did find it a bit of a struggle doing this outline. I think because obviously it's such a strong colour compared to all of the others, and the fact it's gouache and it doesn't have the same flow as watercolours, I didn't realise how many times I had to keep going back and dipping into that black paint and then painting it on the page and then going back again, so it was really hard to try and maintain a relatively consistent line here, and I perhaps wish I could have done, but it's not really a big deal. And I really think it finishes everything off and it just makes this pair stand out from the background, which I kept very simple with a nice pink swirl and a blue background. Just a little bit of movement, but nothing too wild. I also think this looked a lot better once the eyes were painted in. Yes, I did that thing again where I paint the eyes in last. But yes, I actually thought this was quite a fun prompt in the end, once I'd figured out what I was going to do with it. Oh, and just look at Claudia's cute smile that I put on there. Anyway, yes, this has been a 5-prompt video, and if you have made it this far, please leave a mermaid and a crab emoji down below if you can. Don't worry if you can't. But if you have made it this far, you are legendary because I don't think I've done a video this long before. However, if you do want me to make longer videos, I will take that into consideration. There have been some projects that I've wanted to do and I've just thought they might be time consuming for a video, but if you want me to go there, and enough of you do, I might go for it, especially after I've moved house as well, when I can start doing the bigger stuff again. But anyway, that is our 5-prompt video and I do hope you've enjoyed it. Be sure to tune in on Friday because I will be doing a witchy things to draw, and I'm sure maybe over the weekend I'll pop some more mermaids up for you to enjoy. I just want to say a massive thank you to all of you for being really patient with me on this one. It really means a lot to me and I really appreciate all of the wonderful support you send my way, so a massive thank you. And again, if you haven't subscribed, why not hit that button right now? And while you're there, there should be some more lovely videos on screen that I think you're going to enjoy. In the meantime, thank you again for watching and I'll see you soon. Bye!